Start recording. And we're up to the last one on there, number 6. Gary, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Number 6.
Yes.
God honored even the miscreations of his children because they had made them. But he also blessed his children with a way of thinking that could rise their perception so high they could reach almost back to him. The Holy Spirit is the mind of atonement. He represents a state of mind close enough to one-mindedness that transfer to it is at last possible. Perception is not knowledge, but it can be transferred to knowledge or cross over into it. It might even be more helpful here to use the literal meaning of transferred or carried over, since the last step is taken by God. Alrighty then. That is, I don't know about you guys, but that seems to be loaded with some things I've read it before and forgot it, or I've not seen it before. I love that one, the first line, God honored even the miscreation of his children because he had made it. So when he says, and he has also blessed his children with a way of thinking, and I'm assuming the way of thinking is seen through the eyes of atonement, that could rise a perception so high they could reach almost back to him. So that makes sense. Yeah, here it is. The Holy Spirit is the mind of atonement. He represents a state of mind close enough to one-mindedness that transfer to it is at last possible. Okay, it is something that I've heard before, probably often. Perception is not knowledge, but it can be transferred to knowledge. Okay, get that? Or cross over into it. Sometimes maybe it's just me reading it twice. It might even be more helpful to use a literal meaning. Okay, I'm getting it. Does anyone else have any questions about it or comments?
Well, just that first line for me isn't that what parents do? Every piece of artwork goes on the fridge and it doesn't matter.
Kind of curious to look at the lives that we've created and think of it as a stick drawing on refrigerator of God.
He's stuck on the fridge.
Yeah, I kind of like that, actually. Does anyone have anything they want to share about that? Wendy, go for it.
Yeah, I was thinking about what I always forget that Veronica said when she says all the pictures on your refrigerator, and I could just see that on God's refrigerator. Like, it was so close. Do you see how close that is to a creation? They're almost there. It's incredible.
He's just egging us on.
Yeah. And all the angels are going, yeah, we can see it. Yeah, definitely. You know, like any good grandma.
Let's move on.
Okie dokie. Here's a nice short one. Oh, no, it's not. It's the whole paragraph there. Shall I do that one?
Yeah.
Okay. The Holy Spirit, the shared inspiration of all the sonship, induces a kind of perception in which many elements are like those in the kingdom of heaven itself. First, its universality is perfectly clear, and no one who attains it could believe for one instant that sharing it involves anything but gain. Second, it is incapable of attack and is therefore truly open. This means that although it does not engender knowledge, it does not obstruct it in any way. Finally, it points the way beyond the healing that it brings and leads the mind beyond its own integration towards the path of creation. It is at this point that sufficient quantitative change occurs to produce a real qualitative shift. Go,
I
Wendy.
didn't want to, yeah, no, this is an amazing group of sentences, the way this leads into what's going on. And I think they're talking about the happy dream, where the whole concept of the Course in Miracles is to perceive the presence of love. And the only way to do that would give you elements that were like the kingdom of heaven itself. Not exactly the kingdom of heaven, but like it, so that you could start feeling safe in the shift to the oneness. Because it said in the paragraph before, God makes the final step, but he only will do that when you are truly ready. So that's where I think that is. And I've read the book a couple of times. I didn't get the feeling that occasionally we don't create. It's just that we don't know we do because we're so confused. So we're kind of making and creating and making and creating and then miscreating a little bit here and there. But the Holy Spirit purifies each one. The good stuff. And doesn't even have bad stuff. He doesn't see bad stuff. He's like, no, that's just nothingness. Don't worry about that.
You know,
So,
for me, I view it a little differently. I think I have a hard time separating like the Holy Spirit is something different than the qualities inside of me. I don't, and maybe we're saying the exact same thing. But I think it for me anyways, it's super important to view this as this is an internal process that happens inside of each one of us individually. Like the Holy Spirit is that higher part of myself. The sonship is my perception of how I choose to see oneness or division and fear. And it it creates more of a sense for me of connectedness. And maybe we're saying exactly the same thing, but I don't see the Holy Spirit as something separate than myself. I don't mean my ego self, but the higher aspects of me in the purest aspect are one with that particular light and that source of love. Because I think that is what we all are. We're sparks of the divine. That helps me stay or feel much more connected. Like heaven is a place, is a kingdom inside of me. And the Holy Spirit is a resonating frequency, time, space destroyer, and just a frequency of love that is reverberating through me. And that gives me this sense of alignment. I mean, all of us undoubtedly have our own individual connection to these, to the words. But I would be curious on how other people, like experience this thing we're calling the Holy Spirit and this thing we're calling the kingdom of heaven. How do you guys experience that? Are we experiencing it as something that is like attainable, and are we experiencing it as a place within ourselves that we've yet to actually enter and experience fully? How are you guys doing it? That's my question. That was kind of a big question, but I think it's important. Does anyone have anything they want to share about that?
well, I could just clarify what I was saying. I actually don't see anything in this book is separate from myself.
Okay, good. That's what I thought.
Yeah, but it can't, it's hard to describe it in first person all the time.
I know, it is.
So I have to accept, or we have to accept that when we're explaining something about how we see it, or the Holy Spirit is actually just the one-mindedness of one mind, but the ego is not separate either. It's just a darker part of the mind that thinks it's separate by clouding, well, with just insanity. We don't even have to describe what it's doing. It's just doing crazy stuff, but it's still us confused. So Holy Spirit is our sanity that keeps us grounded, and the ego is what we're trying to work out. That's our lesson. How do we get through what our own lie to ourselves and to everybody? I mean, if you look at anything, it's all separation. We're on the 23rd lesson, and the first lessons are how nothing in this physical universe is anything other than separation, right? Because we're really good at it. God gave us the power of creation. You don't think we could create a universe? So yeah, that's how I see that. But the Holy Spirit saying, no, it's, which is you, is now you're fine. And he's introducing a kind of perception where you understand that the heaven's within you. So heaven's not separate either.
Yeah, I think it's all an internal play within us. Personally, I see the ego as the shadow, the injured self, the separated self, the fearful self. How about someone else? How are you guys experiencing it?
I still struggle with the religious connotations from the Holy Spirit, sonship, kingdom of heaven. So for me, they kind of meld into one thing, and it's all about just getting that connection, that oneness, and feeling part of everything. So, but I do wonder that we need to struggle and intellectualize all this so much. But I think when you look at animals, in like just out there, the birds, the bees, they're just doing, they're just being what they're here to do, and they don't need to. And because I'm spending so much time with the horses now as well, if one of them's in pain, well, they still continue on. They don't bitch and moan about it. They don't need to analyze it to death. It's just there, and the herd or the people around them will support them while they work their way through it.
I think that there's tremendous lessons in equine work, because that's exactly right. And, I've got off the phone today with several people that, had relatives, or they were going through their own, cancer scares and that sort of thing. And I wrote one, a pretty long email about, like, this is part of the journey. It isn't something we can will away. It's part of, like, the karmic destiny. It's part of the journey. And we will have loss. There's no doubt about it. We'll have tears. We'll have all of that. And at the same time, it isn't who we are. Like, there's something much higher in operation.
And I think with all the with pain and illness, I think we have such a fear around it. We have such a fear around it. And I think that's the difference, because especially with horses, they're prey animals. They have fear about, they need to keep themselves safe, but they don't have fear around pain. It's just what they're carrying that for whatever reason they're carrying it, but they don't have fear around it. They're not fearful about it. It's quite interesting.
They just go through it.
Yeah, and I think the fear makes the pain and the illness worse, because we're not trusting in we can get through this. We're putting into the hands of doctors, and that's where the fear is, because we're taking away the control, like this is my body and I'll work through it, and whatever happens is exactly what's supposed to happen. And
Yeah.
what's the lesson I'm learning from it?
Ultimately, that's the question.
Mm.
Would anyone else like to share? Like, how do you frame this? How do you do this within yourself?
I'll
think
share. Oh, you go, Coralie.
you can go. I was just going to say a lot of it, I think, is about being present. And just thinking about, like, this morning I went for a walk along the beach, and walking along the beach is amazing. You know, just watching waves and the tides and how the moon controls the tides is just blowing my mind lately. But I think that there's so much when you're just being. But then you also can walk along the beach, and I do both of these, as walk along and think about all your problems and not be there. Not be with God while you're there. The same person doing the same thing, sort of.
It's all the focus of the mind, isn't it? Which is our prayer.
Carly?
Yeah, I love that focus of the mind, because a person sent me a piece of music that they had intuited, and it was only for 5 minutes. And I was walking to the shops and I put it on. And as soon as I heard it start, it was just all voice with no words. And so it hit me, and I transcended walking to the shops into the angelic realm instantly. And I literally went into total surrendered peace, like the Holy Spirit or the angelic realm went through me, and suddenly everything in front of me, no matter what it was on the path, was just in this euphoric peace. And I went to the shops like that. So I had about a 5-minute walk, and it was all from one piece of music, and it was instant. And so for me, the Holy Spirit and the will, the ego surrendered instantly, because it knew and felt totally 100% safe in this peace. I had no mindset come in, so I didn't have a focus on the mind at all. And it just transformed me walking into the total surrender of the holy.
Send that link over to all of us, Kali.
Well, I actually then, she sent it on an email, and then I lost the piece and I couldn't re-listen, but it was incredible. Like, it was as simple as that, and it was instant.
Well, it
And
must be big for you.
yeah. But so that Holy Spirit piece in our ego will, like, my ego felt 100% safe in the certitude of the Holy Spirit. And so it just instantly, I didn't have to even check my boundaries or think, is this safe to be, like, it was an instant shift from,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
Callie, I had a question about that. Is that something that piece of music, was that something that you have heard before?
No, she had made it up,
Yeah,
and she
okay.
wanted me to see what I thought of it. And I said that was an instant, incredible. It was like the whole heavens opened and flowed through me for humanity as I walked.
Mm,
But it was incredible. I can't give it any other way. It was just pure.
mhm. And don't you think that what we are not aware of enough is that holy instant, that blessed event that you were a part of, is there constantly, consistently. It never goes away. We are it, and it is us, and there is no separation whatsoever. And it's just a matter of us opening, right? And so that's so nice to hear. It's beautiful.
Yeah, like, I could have focused on the shopping list and heard it from my other part of me, my ego, but I honestly, the energy in it, the energetic impact hit me without me needing to think about my shopping list. I totally surrendered as instant as it came on. So it was that powerful. And yeah, you're right, Jane, it's constantly there. So we get busy in our mind.
Yeah.
Joey, you look very contemplative, my friend. Do you have any thoughts you want to share?
I'm just listening.
Okay.
I wasn't fully sure what the question was you asked, so I was just sitting back listening.
Okay. I was just asking how each one of us kind of have that personal relationship to this thing called the Holy Spirit and the kingdom of heaven and the sonship. How are we taking these words and what meaning are we applying in our everyday lives to them? And how are we engaging with them and interfacing with them? And is it something we view as outside of us? Is it something we view inside of us? What meaning are we each individually giving it? And how are we experiencing that relationship to it? I was just curious because I think all of us see it just a tad bit differently, experience it just a tad bit differently. There's no right or wrong. It's just, how are we doing that?
Well, my relationship with Source, Holy Spirit has been a rough go for my majority of my life. I have to say that's changed over the last like 5 to 7 years, but since really being with all of us, reading through the Course of Miracles, my perception is shifting. My views are changing. My heart is opening. It's a unique experience to shed those layers of skin that were just filled with hate and rage and anger, and really start realizing that I create everything before me. Everything. And I mean, we've talked about some of the X stuff, and I created it. They didn't create it, I did. And it's one of those realizations of where like you just slap yourself up against the forehead and just be like, damn, I gotta stop doing that to myself. And I think that's where you start releasing the desire for like revenge, so to say. Like I don't seek a revenge. I don't seek hardship on anyone anymore. I don't wish my enemies like to go F themselves or anything. Like even my road rage is minuscule compared to what was 5 years ago. So it's definitely opening myself up to the realization of I literally wield the brush. I create all that's before me. And if I keep that thought in my mind through every experience, I can literally turn any shit situation into just an experience to learn and grow from.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Are we ready to graduate to the voice of God?
I'm not sure yet. Linda, did you have anything about how you see Gary's question, all these Holy Spirit and sonship? Now that you're sitting down.
Well, I guess it's a practice, an everyday practice. Like while I'm doing my gardening, I'm just in my thoughts the whole time. So those thoughts can be, which I've been practicing for a very long time, is take the negative thoughts and just look at what you have, be grateful for what you have. So while a couple of weeks ago, I suppose, I had a real black dog time. And for those in America, if you don't know what black dog is, it's a bit of a fall into a little bit of a black hole. And I spent about 3 days like that, and I just don't do that usually. But once when I started working my way out of that, it was about being grateful for the fact that at least I have something to live in. That I can pack up and leave whenever I want to, or, and I've got my little companion, Gracie, my cat. Just being grateful for all of those sorts of things. So that's what I do pretty much every day when I'm out gardening, is just I don't put music on or anything. I just am in my own thoughts, and any negative thoughts that come up, I just start twisting them around, because that's fun. Even if you're feeling really down and sad and lonely and feel like the whole world's just caving in on you, you can have fun with, think of a positive thought. Maybe it doesn't quite do it for you, but at least you're working at it. You're starting to think in that positive way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I tend to have a little bit of fun with it. So if I'm feeling a little bit down, I'll think, okay, well, what's a positive? Positive is this. Oh yeah, who cares? Blah 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 blah. But at least I've done it. You know what I mean? So I guess for me that's how I feel with that question that you asked, Gary, is that I'm doing that every day and just trying to make it not always positive, but that's good. It's about balance as well. But realizing the negatives is just as good as realizing the positives as well.
I agree. I think it's really important, like when we come across some of these statements, it's like to ask the question how each one of us are individually doing this, living it to the best of our abilities, because we're all going to be doing it at different levels of understanding and in different ways. And personally, I get a lot from hearing you guys talk about how you're applying it, because I think it gives us a real sense that last thing I want from the Course in Miracles is say, oh, I'm just not doing it right, or have judgment on ourselves, in any of us individually. To do it as we do it and then just continue to show up and read through it, I think is super valuable. So thank you all for sharing.
Absolutely.
I got some value from that.
All right, who wants to read the start of the Voice for God? And I can't see everyone's hand because we've got so many people now. James,
So is it
go
number,
for it.
is it
Yay.
number one? Number
Yes.
one, the voice of God. Okay.
Yes. James put a
Thank
hand
you.
up.
Yeah. Okay. Healing is not creating, it is reparation. The Holy Spirit promotes healing by looking beyond it to what the children of God were before healing was needed and will be when they have been healed. This alteration of the time sequence should be quite familiar because it is very similar to the shift in the perception of time that the miracle induces. The Holy Spirit is the motivation for miracle-mindedness, the decision to heal the separation by letting it go. Your will is still in you because God placed it in your mind. And although you can keep it asleep, you cannot obliterate it. God Himself keeps your will alive by transmitting it from His mind to yours as long as there is time. The miracle itself is a reflection of this union of will between Father and Son. Cool. Miracle itself is a reflection.
Nice to know we can't obliterate it.
Yeah.
Such a good word though, isn't it? Obliterate.
Oh,
good word.
it kind of says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I love that one line. God Himself keeps your will alive by transmitting it from His mind to yours as long as there is time. I view that as time as being eternal time.
Yeah.
Like it's a forever thing.
That's where I got hung up, because I mean, if time doesn't exist, why are we even talking about time when it comes to that aspect? So I got hung up on that ending there, as long as there is time. Like, isn't there always
I
time?
think it means like eternal time. That's what I think it means.
I was
At least that's
thinking
what
back to
means.
how in some cases they've talked about time. Time is in place the way we've constructed it until we reach whatever, the kingdom of heaven. until we reach that higher perspective, then time is in place for us to help us kind of put it all in together to work out what we're doing. And then there is no time, and then we won't need this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to ask this question to people. I'm sorry I'm asking so many questions of people, but
That's great. I
have
love
you-
questions.
have you guys ever experienced, because this is something that just burst into my mind around the concept of time. Have you guys ever experienced meeting someone you haven't seen for a very, very, very long time, like maybe like 20 years or something, and you see them again and it's like you never left them, like
Mhm.
time didn't pass between you and them. And I think what in my experience, it's like consciousness doesn't change. And so when we meet that person again and we recognize that connection, which was the essence of the relationship to begin with, it's almost like time never separated you, not ever. And I just got that little hint that it is really the love and your consciousness that is eternal, that is a connection with the other person, and that does not change. Once it exists, it is.
I
Picking up where
definitely
you
get
left
that
off.
with some people, like Linda. When she pops
Yeah.
over to Nana and we can just hang out, it's like nothing's changed, even though we've been through lots of different things. But you've got that connection that everything else external doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Everything
what I
comes
think is a holy instant. I really do. I think it's a holy instant that we should celebrate when it happens.
Yep, absolutely.
For me, even walking with that piece of music represented the miracle of reflection of the union of will between father and son.
Mm.
So can I ask a question of because I don't know that I'm in agreement with healing is not creating, it is reparation.
Oh.
But isn't everything in the form of creation? Yeah, it's repairing, but repairing is creation.
I see what you're saying. I mean, my take on it, Jane, is that reparation is how I view those two words is like, well, I may not be clear on it, so I might not want to speak on it.
Oh, no.
but
No. I mean, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, to repair the spirit is something different. Like, and Callie just put in there to make amends. It's almost like we're not broken. It's like we don't have to create healing. Healing is just like a thought away, and perhaps it's just repairing what's out of alignment, rather than thinking that I have to create something. It just seems like a bigger task. When I think of reparation opposite creating, reparation sounds like I'm just putting a piece back onto the whole. Creating seems like I'm creating something new and bigger because there's a bigger problem. That's what just came to me, and that's just my little take on it. But
Okay. No,
does that
yeah.
help at all, Jane?
Yeah, no, it does. Again, coming from the notion of it's not broken to begin with. It's just your
Right.
perception, just
Right.
like separation is. So, yeah, okay, good. That's why, 5 and 6 heads are better than one.
Always. Wendy, do you get anything different?
You're muted, hon.
Yeah, no, I realize that. Actually, no, Jane jumped in there right where I needed her. I was pondering that too, because everything that was created by God does not need healing. So it's our mistake that needs amending, not the creation. So that's, it's that tiny mad idea that needs to be relooked at, that we could even be separate from God. That's where, the craziness began, not any other time. So I understood that, and I was like, wow, that could be that I was trying to think. I actually looked up the word in the dictionary, because I was like, what does that word actually mean? Because I always like to know, and I actually have had a feeling like this. I found my friend from when I was 11 years old. I haven't seen her since I was 11. And I hunted her down like a hound dog for years. And I
Stalker.
finally found. And so when we finally spoke, like, hi, it was like we've never been apart.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, I always call her my first love, because she was that kind of situation. And I asked her, I said, because I didn't want to impinge myself, and I didn't think I was, but I didn't know what state she was in as a person. And I said, am I crazy, or was that the best 2 years of our lives when we were like, 10 and 11? And she's like, no. She goes, I've never had another time like that in my whole entire life. And it's with me always. So
Wow.
my thinking is that when we are closer and closer to the atonement, and we go and we actually know God, we're gonna go, and it's gonna be like we never left. Like, oh, we're just gonna take it off right where we were before the craziness started, and laugh it off. Like, that was funny, and go on from there.
That's wonderful.
Mm. I think it's good to note that healing is not creating as well, because I think a lot of people are learning ways of like coaching and other modalities to help people heal, but basically we're just healing ourselves. And if other people want to heal and they're attracted to the way that we're doing it, then they can learn from us, but it's the other person's responsibility. No one else can heal them except themselves.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well put.
And I think with mistakes as well, because that was mentioned earlier, and I'm not sure who mentioned it now, but mistakes, I used to think that I was making mistakes because I was being told, you made a mistake, you made a mistake, you made a mistake. But I don't see it as mistakes anymore. And if somebody says you've made a mistake, I say to them, no, I've just had an experience. So I tend to look at them as experiences now, because those experiences are the things that help me grow. A mistake makes me feel less than. So I just thought I would share that.
That's great.
I love that, because I think to a degree that maybe at some point we were having experiences, and we were having experiences along the way until we thought we made a mistake. And it was really an experience. And I think that's why we are coming back to that. We're rolling back to experiences and lessons and growth and expansion, instead of quilling down into errors and who's wrong and blaming and self-abashing. We're like, wait, no, that's not what's going on here. We're learning. You don't learn by doing everything correctly. You learn by practicing. So we're
Well, I guess we're
practicing.
just, yeah. And we're constantly being told by others
Yes.
though. And we were brought up that way, don't do that. Like I was brought up with don't. I was never given a reason why I shouldn't. So I would go and do it anyway because that was my experience. And either I enjoyed doing it and I carried on, or I stopped doing it because it bloody hurt, like, touching a fire or whatever. So it's embedded into our minds that we're making mistakes as we go along, which is, I guess, and I've been thinking about this too, V, is why I'm estranged. I'm estranged, sort of estranged from my sister, because everything that I've done, and I've loved what I've done in my life because I've done a whole lot more than other people have done. That's not the reason why though, but I've learned a lot of things. I've chosen a lot of different paths. I've come back onto the same, my original path, but had a lot of fun along the way. But in others' eyes, they look at that and say, well, you're almost 60 years old. Why haven't you got your own house? Why haven't you settled down? Why aren't you doing this? Why? I mean, I tend to walk away from those people now, but and recently have done just that. But they are growing experiences. And I think that if we see them in that light, then it's continuing our growth. Doesn't matter what anybody else says.
Well-
They're just saying it because of all the mistakes that they think they've made. They're not seeing it in that same light as, well, it's an experience. So you either learn from it or you go and do it again because it gives you pleasure.
When I was very young, I think I had a very interesting mindset because my family used to say that I was in La La Land. And I'm working my way
God, I
back
got
there.
that too.
I have been
got
working my way back to La La Land now because I realized I was probably in the
Yeah.
right spot.
That's
And
right.
I must have been like an enigma to them, like, what is she saying? Because I must have been saying something incredible. I was very young, so I don't remember. They managed to patch that up. But I do hear what you're saying. And now I realize that anybody on the outside that says anything to set limits on who I am is just my ego
Mhm.
trying to bring me back down because they wouldn't be there to do that otherwise. And my lesson is to look with them on love, know that they're there to do that job so I can learn the lesson. I'm on the right path.
And what everybody else says about us is none of our business.
Exactly.
If they're talking behind
Right.
our backs, whatever they say, it's none of our business. They can do, say whatever they want to.
And
It's not our
matter of
problem.
fact, some of the crappy stuff I say about myself is none of my business either.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I said, that's not nice to say about yourself. That's none of your business. I'm leaving that alone. And I walk out. Luckily, while I'm having these conversations, I'm generally alone.
Shall we move on? See if we can squeeze
Yep.
one more in.
Yep.
And it's a short one anyway. Who's going to read this one?
I can attempt a short one.
Okay.
I believe I have dyslexia, so it comes up once in a while. Okay. The Holy Spirit is the spirit of joy. He is the call to return with which God blessed the minds of his separated sons. This is the vocation of the mind. The mind had no calling until the separation, because before that, it had only being and would not have understood the call to right thinking. The Holy Spirit is God's answer to the separation. the means by which the atonement heals until the whole mind returns to creating. Whoa.
That's really cool.
I love the whoa moments in the Course in Miracles.
There's a lot of them.
Yes, almost every paragraph.
Pretty much.
But we never get sick of saying, whoa.
No.
You know what I'm struck by is that the Holy Spirit, that we are loved so much, and we are in such a love fest, nest, whatever, that God saw fit when separation comes into play, the Holy Spirit rushes in, to take its place. How much more loved can you be than that, right?
I'm going to share something because I loved what you said, Jane, and my experience is a little bit different. Because when I say that in my mind, because I'm kind of a nut on language. When I say that in my mind, it makes me feel like something's coming. But when I think of it, that my choice for the Holy Spirit to show up in my life is a thought away. It's the turn of a dial of my thinking. It's where I want to place my focus, and I can place it on the pain and the fear of the appearance of separation, or I can place it on my oneness with the divine. And that for me is where, especially in relationships, are really hard for me to see, like the atonement, because people aren't always my favorite thing on the planet. No. So
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I get it.
yeah, so I could do really good with a dog, but sometimes people are a little bit more difficult. But when I can see like the perfection in another person, the call for love from misaligned behavior, and I can reach a place of just neutrality, that is when I feel like the Holy Spirit is with me.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I like personally, because if I word it in a way that makes the Holy Spirit like an outside thing to me, and not that you did that, but that's what I would do if I make it that. What I do is I separate myself even more from it. I want to think that is an eternal presence that is with me 24/7 with every breath, and all I have to do is turn my attention to it. All I have to do is change my mind about the separation I'm perceiving and see behind it. And I guess, I wrote this statement down, is that the Holy Spirit promotes healing by looking beyond. And I feel like for me, it's like looking beyond the separation. That is where I see the atonement. That is where I see the Holy Spirit in action, is that one moment. And in my belief system and in my practice, when I'm meditating, when I get done, generally not a great meditation, I'm struggling with my mind, but I will say, God, give me the strength to meditate and focus my mind to see your face. Even that is not, I don't sit and do that. I feel like it's God pulling me to sit. I don't sit and think anything about myself other than I'm sitting here, and sometimes I feel the sense of God just on the other side of a very thin black gossamer, sheet that's between me and the other realms. And I think, when you pull me enough that's when I will come through that. But it's like nothing I do has ever gotten me to that. It's always been grace that has given me any experience I've ever had. And so when we walk our world and we start thinking, is it up to me to change my mind? It's almost like what if we prayed for the grace to be bestowed upon us to turn our minds instantly to the Holy Spirit, to turn our minds instantly to that atonement. It's not our will, it's not our ego, it's not our efforting and our increased spirituality or whatever that nonsense is. It's about the grace of God and us knowing that we will put out the effort. But when it is His will, we come. When it is His will, we see. When it is His will or her will, we actually begin to start awakening. And that feels, at least in my model of the world, the cleanest to me. If I was to think, I meditated 3 hours today, and I'm such a spiritual guy, I'm like, what a bunch of bullshit.
Right.
It just
Yeah,
is.
it's almost
What is that divine coming to me and pulling me towards it?
Yeah, absolutely. And don't you think it's like the difference is really like you can be on the ground in an airplane taxiing. It's a cloudy day, it's raining, and then you go high enough and there's the sunshine.
Yeah. And
It
all
was
of it's
just blocked.
coexisting at the same time, right?
Yeah. It was always there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great metaphor, actually. Well, it's 8 o'clock straight up, gang. Should we do our words? Our statements?
Let's.
And Joey, I'm sure you did not write down the one I wrote down.
You got to start then, Gary.
Okay, here it goes. And I already said it. The Holy Spirit promotes healing by looking beyond. And for me, that's not even seeing that there's an imbalance. It's just looks beyond to the divine aspect that has no need for healing and goes there and identifies with that. And then the healing naturally happens.
Who's next?
I'll go.
Go for it.
Keep making mistakes. They can be fun, and you can only grow from them.
I love that. Thank you, Linda.
My pleasure.
And Linda, you inspired me because I have no mistakes, just experiences.
Nice.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's really cool. Don't often inspire people.
Today's
Oh,
the day.
I think you inspire a lot of people, Linda.
Yeah. Wendy, have you got one?
Well, I journal, so I wrote this yesterday about what I appreciate about myself. And I think it's relative to this because I wrote what I was very appreciative about myself is my consistency in God thoughts. Even in my insane resistance and haunting thinking, I remain in God.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Mine is
Carly? Kelly, go for it.
mine is have fun with your thoughts. And then I had the whole mind then returns to creating.
Nice.
Nice.
Joe?
The Holy Spirit is the spirit of joy.
I like that.
Nice.
Yes, indeed.
Carly?
In a holy instant.
Mine was because I was thinking about, so when I'm connected to God, it's my breath. When I feel my oneness, it's my breath. So my breath opens my oneness.
Hmm. Nice.
And you can
Mm.
connect anytime.
Mhm.
Beautiful. So Gary won't be here next week, but we'll still be here. Whoever wants to come along, and we'll continue through our journey through A Course in Miracles.
Nice.
Thank you always for organizing and doing this.
My pleasure. I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
It's important to all of us, and I have this sense that more and more people are going to start rocking up to this, because I'm gonna start inviting clients and stuff that I feel really need it. I've got one client that is biting at the bit to join, but so she'll probably be here next week. And if she does come, her name's Dina. Just welcome her with a lot of love, because she's suffering right now.
Be glad to.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay, gang. God bless you all.
Everybody.
Take care.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Everybody enjoy the week.
Guys,
Mm.
be well.